This video is brought to you by viewers like you. Thank you. Be sure to subscribe and help get this video to 2,000 likes. Also, I'm now on Cameo, so make sure to check out my profile to get a personalized FU video. And I say, hey! It's a typical Monday morning in the Reed house. DW is making a mess and screaming at the top of her lungs, while Mr. and Mrs. Reed do jack-diddly squat to calm her down. Turns out, DW is all wound up because the circus is coming to town, which I'm pretty sure no kid born after 2010 would give a hot flying crap about. At school, Muffy perfects her counterfeiting skills while Binky stabs his easel to death. Arthur fever dreams his painting turning into an elephant, but that's what happens when you take the brown acid. Arthur gets sent to the school nurse, where his friends all skip class to check on him.
Did you throw up yet?
Buster, you are my spirit animal. Back at home, Arthur continues to get sick when DW comes in to make things worse. She tells him to quit faking, right before stealing his crackers and making a huge mess. DW complains how Arthur gets to eat dinner on the couch while she has to eat dinner at the table.
Ugh, spinach!
Dear God, not again. That night, Arthur has a nightmare where DW forces him to cross a tightrope on a unicycle and wakes up to find he has chicken pox. The Reed parents tell Arthur he can't go to the circus anymore, and DW is fucking psyched.
Don't worry, I'll take good care of you.
DW takes it upon herself to be Arthur's personal Nurse Ratched and forcefully takes his temperature. Thankfully, Grandma Thora shows up to save Arthur from DW's malpractice, so the tyrannical toddler resorts to verbal attacks.
If you're a good little boy and don't scratch, I'll bring you a balloon from the circus.
What a bitch.
Over the next few days, Grandma Thora takes care of Arthur while DW refuses to let him out of her sight. Oh, god damn it! DW snitches to Grandma Thora, who prepares Arthur a lunch that looks amazing to an 8-year-old and terrible to anyone with IBS. DW grows more and more jealous of the attention Grandma Thora is giving to Arthur, whose chicken pox have gotten so bad it's even spread to the furniture. DW is tired of playing by proxy and decides to go full Munchausen. She gives herself fake chicken pox and tricks her grandma into giving her an oatmeal bath. Her plan immediately backfires as she somehow doesn't understand what happens to magic marker in soapy water. Grandma Thora catches on to DW's lie and gives her the scolding her parents would never have the balls to deliver. That night, DW complains to her dad that she'd rather have the chicken pox than go to the circus. Instead of explaining how chicken pox make you feel horrible and that getting gifts and special privileges are only a minor silver lining compared to the constant pain of being sick, Mr. Reed tells DW to get over herself. He gives her the option of staying home from the circus, which is maybe the first smart thing he's ever done as a father. It's the morning of the circus, and Arthur's chicken pox have healed enough that he can go. Meanwhile, hell has apparently frozen over as DW apologizes to her parents and admits she was acting out because she was jealous of her brother. DW's sudden maturity and character growth are thrown out the window harder than Arthur's plane when she finds out she's now sick. Which makes sense seeing how the Reed parents did absolutely nothing to safeguard their 4-year-old from her highly contagious brother. And unlike the book, where DW's chicken pox serve a karmic justice allowing Arthur to throw his sister's words back in her face, cartoon DW couldn't be more thrilled. When Arthur points out she won't get to go to the circus, she still claims to have won the day, as chicken pox only come once in a lifetime. But being a whiny little brat lasts forever. Let's review. DW accused Arthur of faking his illness and made a fuss when he got special sick day privileges. She attempted to play doctor with her bedridden brother and refused to leave him alone. Her green-eyed monster got the better of her when Grandma Thora paid more attention to Arthur, who was actually sick and therefore needed more help. She pretended to be sick to trick her grandma into doting on her and was only punished with a slap on the wrist. And even when she finally admitted her mistake and apologized for her actions, showing maturity for the first time in her life, she immediately reverted to her old ways once she got her own case of chickenpox. Because the status quo is God, and DW can never, never, never be allowed to grow up, figuratively or literally. F-U, DW. And I say, hey! Emily is back from her trip to Paris, and DW couldn't give a single solitary crap. Emily admits she got her first kiss from a French boy named Pierre, and feels like she's been turned into a princess. DW is green with envy and vows to find her own Prince Charming. Emily tells her, "Good luck, ho." DW is plotting to get her first kiss when the Tibble twerps find her talking to herself and mistakenly believe she plans to kiss one of them. The dynamic dipshits rightfully crap their pants at the thought of being kissed by the prepubescent bride of Satan.
You could kiss one of them. fun.
It's not like bakers can be choosers. The next day at preschool, the class is voting on what song to put on for nap time. Emily suggests a French lullaby, while DW suggests Mary Moo Cow, 'cause bitches be basic. James ends up being the deciding vote and reluctantly sides with DW, proving democracy doesn't work. DW sets her sights on the poor young cuck and brags to Emily that she plans to kiss James. Emily tells her it doesn't count if she kisses James, which is a stupid fucking rule, and warns it could backfire horribly. DW imagines kissing James and accidentally turning each other into frogs forever, which is a fate worse than death. DW goes to Arthur for kissing advice, which is apparently a thing siblings do. DW finds his copy of Romeo and Juliet, and for a guy who loves reading, Arthur is terrible at giving plot synopses.
There's this boy named Romeo and this girl named Juliet, and their parents don't like each other, but they fall in love anyway, and plan to run away together. But there's a misunderstanding and it all ends badly. The end.
He left out some important information, but that is the gist of it.
DW chooses to reenact a scene from Romeo and Juliet to get her kiss. Nope, I wish. She wears a disguise to preschool and tries to catfish James into locking lips.
I am, Nora.
Look, I'm not here to speculate about the sexuality of 4-year-olds, but if DW honestly thinks wearing a mustache and speaking with a deeper voice will convince James to kiss her, she might be barking up the wrong tree. DW then proceeds to put herself in danger and hopes James will rescue and kiss her. Her plan backfires miserably, leaving her flat on her ass. DW next resorts to paternity fraud before breaking down and aggressively demanding a kiss from James. Backed into a corner, James reluctantly kisses her and somehow avoids bursting into flames. Emily congratulates DW on her coerced cheek peck, explaining that Pierre only kissed her on the hand, which doesn't fucking count. DW laments the kiss didn't make her feel like a princess, shocker, and says she'd rather do cannonballs with the Tibblewits, which is an innocent enough phrase until you go typing shit into Urban Dictionary. The Tibble testicles run in horror from Dora Weinstein as she runs after them like a ravenous predator. Let's review. DW became hell-bent on getting a kiss from a boy she barely knew. Not because she liked him, but because she wanted to feel like a princess and one-up her supposed best friend. She pestered her older brother to teach her about kissing, which is a sentence that has no business being part of a kid's show. She based her actions on an overrated play about young love, not true love, and tried to trick James into kissing her through catfishing, gaslighting, and deceit. When all her plans blew up in her face, she resorted to screaming at James in front of her peers, forcing him to kiss her against his will. And even after she got exactly what she wanted, she complained the kiss didn't make her feel special, and reverted to hanging out with her friends who now fear she might do the same thing to them. Sadly, this wouldn't be the last time DW used James as a pawn in her feeble quest for romance, because even if you're only 4 years old, it's important to understand that consent is a two-way street, and nobody owes you their affection just because you were dumb enough to catch feelings for the first boy who was nice to you in your entire life. F-U DW.
And I say,
The episode opens with DW complaining how she isn't the central focus of a show named after her older brother. We're then treated to a fantasy sequence about losing teeth. Leave it to an educational cartoon to make teeth look scary as hell. DW is watching a My Little Pony commercial for horse clothes, which sounds dumb until you remember all animals wear clothes in this world. DW asks her mom if she can save up her allowance to buy the clothes herself. Mrs. Reed tells her, fat chance. Arthur has lost another tooth and DW's insults are locked and loaded, until she learns about the Tooth Fairy. Arthur explains how the Tooth Fairy flies around the world collecting children's teeth in exchange for cash, which even DW thinks sounds pretty sus.
Where does she get all the money?
Mental note. The girl knows too much.
DW realizes she can make money with her mouth and sets about pulling out her teeth. She tries to get Pal to do her dirty work, only to be scolded by Arthur, who would probably be fine with DW's scheme if the string was tied around her tongue. Arthur tells his parents about DW's masochistic behavior, causing Mr. Reed to choke on his water harder than Ratburn's Sweet D. DW flat out lies to her parents, demanding to get her tooth pulled. Mrs. Reed says she'll have to take her to the dentist. Mr. Reed says he can't go due to work, because getting piped by your son's grade school teacher is a full-time job.
rats.
I can't tell if that's his pet name or his safe word. The next day, DW continues with her charade as she wastes her mother's and the doctor's time with an unnecessary dentist appointment. The dentist tells her teeth are fine, since most kids don't start losing teeth until they're 6. The Read family next goes to the History Museum, which looks like it was put together by someone with an oral fixation.
Who the fuck are you?
DW gets the idea to use a fake tooth after recalling the time Arthur used a shark tooth to fool his friends into thinking he lost his baby teeth. Instead of using the shark tooth she already has, DW convinces her mom to buy her a new one. That night, DW brags to Arthur about how she plans to trick the Tooth Fairy. Arthur worries DW's scheme will piss off the Tooth Fairy and get their house blacklisted for life. And as much as I rag on DW, even I know Arthur's 8-year-old ridiculous ass is too old to still be believing in the Tooth Fairy. Next you're gonna tell me he still believes in the Easter Bunny? Which, I guess in this world would just be a guy. Instead of telling his parents, or, doing nothing, Arthur uses his own money to make DW think her plan worked.
Ow! Why does DW have a bowling ball in her room?
You don't answer that.
The next morning, Arthur is perfecting his pimp limp when DW comes in to brag about her successful scam.
I tricked the Tooth Fairy! I tricked the Tooth Fairy!
Arthur is relieved until he realizes his dumbass left the fake tooth behind. So DW plans to do it all over again, cleaning Arthur out of house and home. Let's review. DW became obsessed with getting an overpriced toy she didn't need and decided to get the money through any means possible. Once she learned about the Tooth Fairy, she became hell-bent on pulling her own teeth, risking her health and safety. She wasted a doctor's valuable time with an unnecessary dentist appointment and complained when he wouldn't do whatever she wanted him to do. She coerced her mother into buying her a shark tooth, which she already owned, so she could scam the Tooth Fairy, and bragged to her brother about using it to make a quick buck. Which wouldn't have worked if her dumbass older brother still didn't believe in fairies. If Arthur had done absolutely nothing, DW's plan would have died on the vine and her ego would have been kept in check. But no. He had to play along and give DW exactly what she wanted, at both Arthur and Mrs. Read's expense, 'cause she definitely spent more than $1 on that fake-ass shark tooth. Arthur inadvertently gave DW the false confidence to pull off her scheme, not just once, but several more times, ensuring he'll go broke keeping his horrendous sister's sociopathic tendencies at bay. And as much as the truth hurts, at some point Arthur needs to realize there is no Tooth Fairy, and there is no God. Because no cruel God would possibly curse humanity with the unbridled terror that is Dora Winifred Read. F-U-D-W. And I say, Arthur marvels at the sheer magnitude of malicious mischief that is the Tibbletwerps.
You make the Lord very nervous.
Arthur says the only thing that can make them worse would be giving them superpowers, which is a pretty low bar considering the only other notable twin-based superheroes.
Wonder Twin powers, activate! Wait a minute, how come I always change into something lame like ice? I'm always a wave or a puddle.
I don't know, Zan. This isn't the time or the place to get into this.
Arthur complains to his mom that he can't do his homework with DW and the Tibbletwits screaming outside. Mrs. Read gets distracted by the twins' dope-ass hats and makes the grave mistake of inviting the terrible twosome into her home. Mrs. Read calms them down by playing an episode of Mary Moo Cow that was directed by Dan Schneider.
Feet.
Arthur can now do his homework in peace so we can watch a show on magic later.
Maybe I'll learn how to make DW disappear.
Don't you say those things unless they're true.
The Tibbletaints are now thoroughly indoctrinated into the world of foot worship when the VHS tape game ends itself. DW narrowly prevents the two from destroying her TV and goes to get her mom. The Tibbletumers change the channel to an action-packed cartoon, which looks like the personification of ADHD. The show is about superpowered twins who fight crime and give sperm whales head. The next day at preschool, the dynamic dipshits come to class in full regalia. The toxic Tibbles refuse to do their schoolwork, and instead spend the whole day reenacting the Turbo Twins cartoon, which apparently is very anti-whale. Weird hill to die on, but okay. The Tibble Tyrants spend the next several days binge-watching the show and terrorizing their classmates. Meanwhile, their grandma doesn't do a goddamn thing about it. And normally, I'm all for the not my kids, not my problem style of grandparenting. But when it comes to Tweedledee and Tweedledumbass, at some point you have to put your foot down. It's been a whole week, and by now those costumes must be rank as hell. The shrooms kick in as the Tibble Terrors mercilessly bully Emily and DW until Miss Morgan finally intervenes. Instead of telling her parents, DW somehow finds a way to blame this shit on Arthur. Arthur suggests DW tell the Tibbletruants to piss off and stop bothering her. DW likes the idea so much, she steals credit for thinking it up. Because of course she does. DW and Emily confront the nefarious nincompoops, which immediately backfires, resulting in DW getting knocked the fuck out. The Tibble tryhards flee the scene of the crime as they fear they may have killed DW.
Don't you say those things unless they're true.
Grandma Tibble finds the two shit stains and takes them to visit DW at the hospital. The Tibble turds apologize for breaking DW's face, who tells them they shouldn't copy everything they see on TV.
That's the lesson of this movie.
Let's review. The Tibble toilets became obsessed with an awesome cartoon and turned it into their entire personalities. Their cosplay went well over the line as they terrorized their friends and refused to cut it out. When DW tried to make peace, she was rewarded with a sucker punch from a swing. And even though DW did absolutely nothing to deserve it, a lot of you wanted me to talk about this episode. Though honestly, I'm not sure why. Aside from occasionally annoying her brother, DW was ironically the moral center of this episode and ended up teaching a valuable lesson to her delinquent friends. But according to you all, I guess bitches be bitches if they be getting stitches. I gotta stop reading the comments. So, I don't know. FUDW?
And I say, hey!
Arthur changes all the clocks in the house to trick DW into thinking it's his TV time, which ends up being completely pointless since DW can't tell time. DW sees through Arthur's scheme thanks to her freakishly specific internal clock. Arthur explains how without Mary Moo Cow, DW would go crazy.
Well, crazier.
Later that afternoon, DW is screaming at full volume because God forgot how to use the mute button.
She's coming.
Gross.
It turns out Mary Moo Cow will be visiting the Elwood City Mall. DW fantasizes about meeting her childhood hero and running away together, which I'd be all for if Mary was taking her to the slaughterhouse. Arthur tries to tell DW the show isn't real until he realizes he'll get more TV time if he shuts up and plays along. DW and her mom get to the mall only to find the meet and greet has been canceled. DW returns home and takes out her anger on her helpless older brother. She takes back the remote and literally steals the popcorn out of their mouths. DW goes back to watching Mary Moo Cow when, surprise, surprise, the cast reveals it's the series finale. And in a world full of talking animals, the least believable part of this episode is the idea of a kids' show ending on its own terms. The Reed parents try to console DW by explaining that all TV shows eventually stop, whether they end too early or 20 fucking years too late.
You're gonna punish Arthur, right?
What a bitch. DW refuses to give up her TV time out of misplaced spite, as she'd rather watch mind-numbing crap than let Arthur watch Dark Bunny.
She said I could keep this time until I recover from my trauma.
Fuck all the way off. DW gets the idea of making a petition, believing she can get the show back on the air if she gets enough signatures, which sadly never works in real life. Or does it? Over the next several days, DW amasses many a moniker by bribing her peers, soliciting strangers, and forging her baby sister's signature. DW mails her petition, believing it's only a matter of time before Mary Moo Cow returns to television.
Here is a petition, spell petition.
P-E-T-O! Something, something, something!
Don't get me wrong, this is hilarious, but why can't the kids in DW's fantasy spell petition when she spelled petition correctly earlier?
It's best not to think about it.
Sometime later, DW gets a letter from the TV studio and Arthur is giddy to watch his bratty sister's exploits fail. The studio invites DW for a personal tour of the Mary Moo Cow set. Arthur points out they're still not bringing back the show, but DW is prepared to change the studio's mind through any means necessary.
I have come here to chew bubblegum and kick ass. And I'm all out of bubblegum.
DW and her parents go to the studio, where apparently they give tours on set while actively filming other shows. That audio is going to be a nightmare to edit in post. DW asks repeatedly to meet with Mary, only to be told she's not available. DW goes into terror tantrum mode once she figures out the studio is just pitying her and has no intention of bringing back Mary Moo Cow. DW makes a scene in the middle of the set, while the Reed parents regret letting her out of the house in the first place. DW breaks into Mary's dressing room and accidentally finds her sex toys. It turns out the dressing room is actually for a financial analyst to replace Mary's show. She explains to DW how Mary moved on, and it's natural to get fatigued by a job that not only are you good at, but you're well known for being good at. This lesson goes right over DW's head as she's still hell-bent on getting her show back. Security shows up to kick out the Reeds, and DW gets absolutely mind-fucked when she realizes the woman is the real Mary Moo Cow. Meanwhile, I'm still trying to figure out how a financial analyst became the host of a children's show in the first place. Then again, I went to college to study tech writing, and now I pay the rent by ranting about a fictional 4-year-old on YouTube.
Don't ask me how the economy works.
The next day, DW takes the first step toward being a decent sibling by giving her TV time to Arthur. Unfortunately, her moment of maturity amounts to jack diddly squat as the network has canceled Dark Bunny in favor of showing reruns of Mary Moo Cow. God damn it. Let's review. DW developed a cult-like devotion for a show that looks like Barney on bath salts. She refused to share her TV time with Arthur and didn't even let the man have his damn popcorn. When she found out Mary Moo Cow was ending, DW took out her frustrations on her older brother. She tried moving heaven and earth to get the show back on the air, even charging people to sign her petition. A petition which did little more than garner pity and condescension from an apathetic TV studio. She got a special invitation to visit the set of the show and threw a major hissy fit when she realized they weren't going to bring back Mary Moo Cow just because she asked. She barged into a stranger's dressing room and berated a television personality for daring to make her own career decisions without DW's approval. And even after DW finally learned her lesson and tried to be nice to her brother, the forces that be determined Arthur can never win and canceled his favorite TV show. 'Cause why invest in a show that's original and creative when you can rerun some schlock with 100 episodes for less money? F-U-D-W. And I say, hey! Arthur is excited to go to the museum with his dad, when DW rolls in like a squeaky third wheel. DW demands to tag along on Arthur's father-son trip. She resorts to screaming and crying to get what she wants, which sadly will be her default for the rest of the episode. DW refuses to go into the sea monster exhibit. She makes a scene until her dad agrees to take her to the unicorn exhibit instead. That night, DW has the utter gall to brag about her museum trip at dinner, much to Arthur's chagrin. Mr. Reed plans to make it up to Arthur by taking him fly fishing. The hell did that fishing pole come from? The two eagerly plan their DW-free weekend to the lake, which Mr. Reed has only previously visited with his father and his daddy. Arthur and his dad are all set to go as DW tries to get under her brother's skin. It turns out Mr. Reed will have to work next weekend and therefore won't be able to spend time with DW. The fussy 4-year-old cries how it's not fair Arthur will get 2 father-son weekends in a row. Instead of taking 10 seconds to explain that he'll spend his next free weekend with DW, Mr. Reed decides to let DW crash their father-son trip for the second time in 2 weeks. The Reeds drive to the lake while DW blasts her goddamn Mary Moo Cow cassette on loop. After the family sets up camp, Arthur and his dad head out to go fishing. DW tries to tag along until Arthur tells her to fuck off. The two go to Mr. Reed's private fishing spot, where he used to spend his days catching fish and reeling Ratburn's rod. Turns out Arthur's fishing skills are weaker than his dad's pull-out game. Arthur ends up spraining his ankle, and DW wastes no time rubbing salt in the wound.
Safety first. That's what Mary Moo Cow always says.
DW?
I'm just trying to help. You can't catch fish if you aren't safe.
Hello? This isn't about you.
The next morning, Arthur's ankle is still hurt, and DW jumps at the chance to have her father all to herself. Jeez, what's so god-awful about their mom that Mr. Reed is the golden parent? That afternoon, DW strolls into camp acting like she's the son of God, with fish and loaves to boot. Turns out, Mary Moo Cow is great for catching fish, 'cause I'm guessing the fish would prefer to be eaten than listen to some bastardized Barney butcher Frere Jacques. The next morning, Arthur begs his dad to take him fishing in the rain, only to return to camp empty-handed. While they were gone, DW used her Mary Moo Cow tape to help the camp genocide half the lake's fish population.
Mary Moo Cow, I love you!
Arthur is fed up with this bullshit and storms off to go drown rocks in the lake. He bemoans that DW always gets whatever she wants. Mr. Reed fails to recognize that this is largely his fault. He tries to comfort his son with hollow rhetoric when Arthur spots the legendary lake whale, fulfilling his father's childhood dream. Arthur goes back to being the favorite child, while DW whines she didn't get to see the whale herself, even though I'm pretty sure whales can't live in freshwater lakes. And the Reed family never goes back to the lake again, because after a god-awful trip with his family, Mr. Reed realized he should only share his private fishing hole with the one rat who knows how to fill it. Let's review. DW ruined not 1, but 2 father-son weekends in a row. She crashed Arthur's special fishing trip and resorted to crying at the top of her lungs until her horrible parents caved to her demands. She hoarded her father all to herself and bragged about being a better fisher than her brother. She used her god-awful music to murder fish and indoctrinated everyone at the camp into the hellish cult that is Mary Moo Cow. When Arthur complained how DW gets everything she wants, Mr. Read did absolutely nothing to disprove this fact. His father all but confirmed DW will continue to get her way until the end of time because nobody in the Read house has a fucking backbone. Arthur was only able to win back his father's favor by spotting a literal white whale, which DW will undoubtedly take credit for finding in the future. F.U. DW.
And I say,
hey, I have a Patreon. Sign up at patreon.com/MattNeff to get your name in the thank you credits, along with early access to every FUDW and the chance to vote for future episodes. If there's a movie or show you'd like me to talk about, top-tier patrons can commission a review for my channel. Check out the link in the description to become an FUDW superfan. Also, I'm now on Cameo, so make sure to check out my profile to get a personalized FU video.
And I say, hey, what a wonderful kind of day. If you could learn to work and play and get along with each other. You got to listen to your heart, listen to the beat, listen to the rhythm.